Hello and welcome. I'm Jay Gonzo, and this is Jay Gonzo Designs. In this episode, we're going to talk about branding and brand promise. I'm not going to bury the lead here. All effective branding answers one simple question: what are we really selling? If you can suss this out and answer this question considered and honestly, you can build your or your client's entire brand around the answer. Indulge me in a little backstory here. I recently realized that 2023 was my 30th year as a graphic designer, and I wanted to do something to commemorate this. I wanted to start sharing some of my approach and methods with other designers. Not step-by-step instructions on how to use tools within applications, but my personal design approach and theory. More why than how, if that makes sense. So I put out a call for questions on social media, what people might want me to talk about, and how would you brand X, Y, or Z company came up more than a few times. And I realized that my branding methodology might be a good place to start the series. Much of the rest of this series will be predicated on the approach delineated here. And look, I realize that it's become fashionable to deride advertising, especially in its current ubiquitous and pervasive form, and that sometimes branding and brand get loved with the same heart as advertising and marketing and considered gross or sweaty. I get it, the world is a capitalist hellscape. But with more and more people striking out on their own to launch personal businesses, and in doing so, becoming their own marketing department, I thought that a better understanding of some of the mechanics of consumer decision-making could be helpful. So, what do I mean by what are we really selling when it comes to branding? Well, first let me set the framework for this discussion and define some of these terms. Marketing, advertising, branding, and brand have, unfortunately, become somewhat interchangeable to the uninitiated, and no surprise here, they actually do have distinct and different meanings and functions. Let's start with marketing. Marketing is the umbrella term for the process of bringing your product or service to the consumers or market. That's it. Marketing is comprised of many avenues, though, all of which seek to assist in various ways in facilitating the overall goal of getting your product or service to the consumers. Some, but not all of the major avenues of marketing are design, advertising, sponsorship, social media, and public relations. There are some others, market research, media buying, etc., and some of these either overlap in tactic or are reliant on the other avenues, but overall this is a good generalization of the different tracks. First, there's design. This is the establishment of the look, feel, tone, and tenor of your brand. The branding system is established through logo design and a comprehensive graphic standards or style guide. A rule book of sorts that clearly defines how your business will present itself to the world. There'll be much more of this in later videos. What is born from the graphic standards are all the marketing materials that a business is in complete control of. Business cards, letterheads, brochures, website, even invoices and packaging. This is the brand as the business wants to be seen. The graphic standards will even govern, to some degree, how the advertising looks, what it says, and how it says it. Which brings us to advertising. Advertising is paid-for messaging that is placed in various media. TV, radio, web, outdoor. We've all seen ads before. I won't belabor this point. Advertising typically executes against a campaign, iterations on a themed message. These themes, while supporting the brand's promise, should never be considered or confused with the brand itself. These are aspects of the brand and not a summation. There'll be a bit more on this later. Next are sponsorships, lending your name and reputation to another entity. This is usually to gain some of the goodwill that the other entity has by attaching your name to it. This is stuff like the All Valley Karate Championship brought to you by Acme. It's a good way to show you're part of the community. Sponsor a charity 5K, get your logo on the water bottles and t-shirts, put your company's name on a sports arena or wing of a hospital, that sort of thing. It is an excellent method of expressing your business's values. Then we have social media, which is a weird mix of earned and paid for messaging with opportunities to be both broad and granular with your messaging. You can post a coupon for a great deal and tell a very personal story about your founder's lost pet saga. There are literally millions of videos devoted to social media advertising and its methods and efficacy. I'm not going to attempt to summarize that here. I just wanted to acknowledge that social media is a type of marketing and its own unique form. But I will say that if you treat social media with the exact same approach you would your advertising or PR without attempting to understand the full capabilities and nuance of social media as its own unique marketing entity, your results will be stifled at best. Last is public relations. This is another avenue that has millions of videos to explain its methodologies and efficacy, but the broadest contemporary summaries is the process of getting your business talked about in the public discourse. PR offers opportunity for a lot of third-party validation. Getting a well-liked personality or correspondent from a trusted publication, site, show, or podcast talking candidly about your company can be good for business. There is much, much more to PR than this, but again, there are better videos out there to explain this. All of these marketing efforts combined contribute to the construction of a narrative, your brand. A brand is not just your logo or color palette, but rather the look, tone, and tenor of everything your company does, says, prints, broadcasts, and posts. A brand is how the consumer thinks and, more importantly, feels about your company. A brand is a story. Branding is the effort to guide that narrative. So how do we guide that narrative? Brand promise. Brand promise is the answer to that question I posed at the beginning of this video. What are we really selling? This is a deceptively simple question, and where a lot of businesses start to veer off the course of effective branding. Many businesses think, well, we make widgets. We're selling widgets. Our marketing should be, we make the best widgets, buy them from us. It can be easy to lose perspective on your business when you're immersed in every minute detail and see all aspects of it. But it's important to ascertain the emotional response your customer has toward your product or service. Important for a couple reasons. First of all people make emotional decisions. I'm going to say that again. All people make emotional decisions. I know some of you will insist that you're highly rational beings and free from being swayed by emotion when it comes to purchase decisions, but I hate to burst your bubble, recent brain science research says otherwise. fMRI research shows, and rest assured I am way oversimplifying here, that when information enters the brain, it enters through the more primal base of the brain and is then passed along to the prefrontal cortex, the higher reasoning parts of the brain. But on the information's way into the brain, it passed through the amygdala, an area associated with emotions. And the amygdala will actually fire up motor neurons in response to the information before that information has even arrived at the prefrontal cortex. Now, the higher function portion of the brain can agree with or try to override the emotional response, but the body's volition is that of emotion, be sure of that. And we all know what it's like to argue with ourselves between our heart and our head, and we know which one usually wins out. Daniel Pink wrote a great book about this called The Whole New Mind. I highly recommend checking it out. Now, once you know how your customer feels about your business, your marketing can support that feeling, and you can reduce the risk of producing counterproductive messaging. You don't want to undermine your marketing efforts by crafting messages that run counter to the ethos of your brand. If people think of your brand as folksy and accessible, you don't want to suddenly run stark, designy ads. Conversely, you don't want people to think that they're going to an Apple store and then showing up and finding Anthropology. It's like taking a big drink of what you thought was Coke only to discover that it's Dr. Pepper. You may like Dr. Pepper, but if it's not what you expected, you're going to get a little grossed out. Figure out what your customer is expecting to feel. Figure out your brand promise. Figure out what you're really selling. At this point, you might be asking, how do I figure out brand promise? Well, these are the steps that I take. I have this questionnaire that I give to my clients. Their answers help me to discover how they think of themselves, how they conduct their business, a snapshot of a typical customer interaction, and how they fit into and are regarded within their specific industry or sector. All of these questions are designed to figure out who they are, what they do, and how they do it. Distilling this all down to a positive emotion that the business or service ideally elicits from its customers is brand promise. Things like serenity, empowerment, security, enrichment, etc. Emotions like these are what is really being sold by every business. Additionally, while the client is answering this questionnaire, I will audit the industry that the client operates within. I will learn everything I can about my client's business sector. I will assemble a collection of the competitors' or colleagues' branding, and I will look at what other companies in the same business space are doing, and define the visual vernacular of that category. I can then either ensure that I work in harmony with the sector or be conspicuously contrary to it. This industry audit will also help define the brand pillars. These are the 4 chief sentiments that support the brand promise. These all relate to the business category or industry that my client dwell within. The 4 pillars that I use are areas of distinction. What does my client do that no other business does? Areas of parity. What does my client do that is expected within this category? Esteem. How does this business sector regard my client's business? Knowledge. What does my client know about the industry and what are they trying to do within it? I have seen brand pillars defined in many other ways, but this set has been the one that has served me best. None of this is gospel, so take what works for you and disregard the rest. No dogma here. Once I synthesize all of this into a brand promise and brand pillars, I present an overall creative brief back to the client to ensure that they agree with my findings, and if needs be, I will modify this based on client feedback. All of this preliminary effort will clearly define a metric for success when designing the elements of brand for my client, whether that be just a logo or an entire comprehensive branding system and brand standards for them. So all of this discussion thus far has been steeped very much in the abstract. So let's take a look at some brands that have a firm grasp on what they are really selling. And since we're talking about branding, I am legally obligated to mention Nike. What is Nike really selling? Athletic equipment? Cool? Innovation? Yes, those might be part of what Nike sells on a granular level, but what Nike really sells is transcendence. Transcendence of self through sport. They are selling you the opportunity to be the better or even the best you possible. How you get there is with their products. Nike sells an idea, and that idea is an emotion, and all of their branding supports this emotion. Okay, what about McDonald's? Does McDonald's sell burgers, fast food, convenience, Americana? Again, granularly, yes. But what Mickey D's is really selling is enjoyment. We all know that it's food only by the loosest of definitions, but we also know that it is 100% enjoyable. And our prefrontal cortex has no chance stopping us from indulging once in a while. And all of McDonald's advertising and branding supports this emotion. Lastly, what about you or me as graphic designers? What is Jay Gonzo really selling? Is it cool logos, interesting color and font choices, creativity? Granularly, yes, but my brand promise is efficacy. Whether your business needs a new timeless logo or an entire comprehensive branding system, it's never about my personal taste or trends. It's about being effective. I will research your business to uncover its brand promise and survey its industry's landscape to establish brand pillars and deliver efficacy. I am really selling work that works. And I've been doing it for 30 years now. So I hope I can help a little. I hope this helped a little. Thanks for watching. Design like you mean it. Goodbye.